one of his disciples whom Jesus loved, who he esteemed and delighted in, was reclining next to him on Jesus' bosom.
We interrupt your program to issue a severe warning for an impending emergency making its way to your area. We urge you to be watchmen of the times and to be prepared with the essential knowledge and supplies for the wake of the final hour.
Welcome to the Final Hour podcast, coming to you from the original Living Word Christian Center out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Jim Hammond.
I'm Lonaiah.
I'm John Gapp.
And we have Jerry.
Hello.
Hi.
Jerry is our producer. And we have some interesting stuff for you today. I just want to remind you, please subscribe. It really helps us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you can catch us on Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And so...
So that's good.
How you doing,
So
Jim?
check in. We appreciate your follows and we appreciate your subscribing to the podcast. What do you think about that?
Share, like...
So listen, isn't it funny, like, if this would have been 50 episodes, we would have started over, and now we just don't care.
It's good stuff.
And so...
People like the authenticity. Look, Jim's shirt matches the sign exactly like...
Good Lord.
I know, crazy.
Planning.
What planning?
It's a word of wisdom. Listen, if you're into eschatology, which is Bible prophecy about the end times, we're talking about the prophetic word of God, prophecy involving the end times, what happens before the rapture, after the rapture, during the tribulation, during the millennium, after the millennium. The prophetic word of God or Bible prophecy is 30% of the Bible. And so it's good if we can familiarize ourselves with it and know it well. In Bible prophecy, Nimrod, the Tower of Babel guy, is understood by scholars to be a type or forerunner of the Antichrist.
Yep.
When you were little and someone was like really annoying, did you call
Nimrod.
Yeah, you called them a Nimrod?
Absolutely.
Did you do that down south, call people Nimrods?
They did in South Dakota.
I don't think I've ever
did.
called anyone that in my life.
A Nimrod? You're
No.
such a Nimrod. My mom still says it.
Nimrod,
But then I was so confused because then in high school, in Bible class, we found out that Nimrod means hunter.
Oh. Well, Nimrod
Which then
means
you
you're
look
an
into
idiot.
it further, it's a hunter of men.
Oh.
Because of what he was doing with his wife, mother.
Wife, mother?
Yeah, Nimrod married his mother after a time. It's a wild story.
Wow,
You
I
should
didn't
check
know
it
that.
out.
there's a lot of stories on Nimrod.
Ugh.
Maybe next week, because we're talking about Tower of Babel, I'll come in with what I have on him personally. This is where the occult really took off.
Yeah.
His wife was a witch. They tried to make
His wife or his mom?
They tried to make their son a god, and actually, they did. In essence, they did. Many people were worshiping the essence of their son centuries later. Nimrod was a very evil guy. He's understood by biblical scholars to be a type or forerunner of the Antichrist. And we know, we see all this talk about globalism.
Yeah.
Before our eyes, nations breaking down, falling apart. Things are so messed up, so confusing, and we see these institutions that are non-elected institutions, the World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, almost seeming to step into a vacuum or the vacuum. What seems to be getting to the point where it's leaderless, where almost the world is getting more and more leaderless. You could say we're going to see today in Genesis what happens when human beings rebel against God and they try to build a culture, a world, you could say, for themselves.
Can we talk about that leaderless line there for a second?
Yeah,
Because I think that is, people don't really think about what it means to have unelected officials, people who are making policy who are not elected. But it feels like any kind of leader these days is you're wondering who's actually behind them, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a deep state type of organization. If it's, they talk about the big five families behind everything in the world, which, the Rothschilds and X, Y, and Z,
Right.
the Rockefellers, So leadership, it feels like there's a vacuum of leadership because there is so much in the public forum, people who are supposed to be the leaders and making decisions, they all feel like puppets.
Right. I agree.
And they're doing nothing. You
Yeah.
don't think they could hit back on China?
Right.
And what China's doing, we talked about a few episodes ago, trying to do to our currency, to the American dollar.
But how can you fight back the person that you're tied with?
America has so many
Right.
strings to pull. I'm telling you,
Both sides.
and at least in these countries that are teaming up with China, right, against the American dollar.
I'm just trying to be careful with my words. I'm saying the current leader can't really go against China because of the familial ties.
I don't know why we can't say that right now.
Yeah, why can't we say that?
I don't know, because
they're
I don't
gonna-
want to get blocked on YouTube.
Well, I mean, I think we've said a lot.
So the
worse than that.
Bidens are working, and Hunter, there's facts
Right.
of his
Absolutely.
business dealings with the Chinese. So they probably have blackmail on the Bidens,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
That's why Biden isn't
Blackmail,
going
but
against them.
blackmail, but also, the Bidens have profited, and that's been shown, and that's what's been talked about in the House investigations currently, that there is money coming into Biden family accounts because of Joe Biden's relationship.
Yeah.
And a lot of them brokered through Hunter.
And I'm just going to say that Hunter Biden laptop keeps circling its ugly head everywhere.
Yep.
It's coming out, but listen, you hear pastors and ministers say all the time, "Oh, the Bible doesn't speak about politics. I just preach the gospel." And to say it nicely, that's a bunch of rigmarole.
Hullabaloo.
Have you ever said rigmarole?
Yeah, I have.
use
But I
it in
like
a
hullabaloo.
different context. I usually use it.
Like, that's a bunch of rigmarole.
That's a bunch of horse feathers.
Have you ever said horse feathers, Jim?
No, but have you ever said rigmarole?
Check it out, though.
Yeah, I have.
Feel it. Feel
But
it
can
out.
I say
Try
something
horse
else?
feathers.
Speaking of horse, that
Horse
Jim
feathers.
says that's so weird. What do you call a cart, John, when you push a cart?
You mean like a shopping cart?
Yes.
Well, I know other people call them buggies. Yeah.
That's what Jim calls it.
Yeah.
He said it to me one day.
It's very much a not Minnesota, Midwest.
Not
It's
Minnesota.
Southern.
yeah, it is.
Buggy.
And,
I got to
and
get my buggy
it's
at the store. Like,
in the UK, they call it a buggy. Yeah.
Just keep drinking that coffee, Lonaiah. Keep catching that.
so when
coffee
you go to
buzz.
get your shopping cart, think of Jim calling it a buggy, asking the lady, do you
Lonaiah.
got any more buggies for me?
Lonaiah, you have traveled all over the world.
My shopping cart doesn't work very well. Is that what you would say? Man, my shopping cart.
You know what?
is really-
I'm the kind of person who goes into a store and I think it'll all fit in my arms, and
Yeah, I
then
do
I'm
that
like
same
walking with like over things. I'm like, is there a basket or something somewhere? I'm that person.
My wife laughs at me when I do that too.
I'm
like,
sure it
"It'll be
surprises you,
fine."
but
You're like, yeah, you've got 2 cases of water and
Yeah.
a jug of milk, and you don't want a cart.
but don't worry, Jim's pushing his buggy, so he's good.
Well,
But back to what I was talking about.
with all that
Ministers.
rigmarole,
Ministers, pastors, saying, they don't talk about politics. They just preach the gospel because there's nothing in the Bible about politics. I'll just say they don't know what they're talking about. Okay. And really what politics is, it's human beings organizing themselves into a power structure and deciding who runs the power structure.
Yeah.
Exactly
That's
right.
politics. Republicans, Democrats, they're just temporary manifestations of the final question of who gets power. And Genesis 11:4, and talking about the Tower of Babel, this is what they said: "Come, let us build us a city and a tower which reaches up into the sky, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over the whole earth." So they're saying, let's not make a tower, let's make a city. They're not just saying, let's make a tower. A key statement, let us make a name for ourselves. In essence, they're saying they do not need God. This is the whole Tower of Babel thing.
Mm-hmm.
It goes into such detail. You can see in the verse before this, it describes the types of bricks they were using
Right.
To make this tower. And I think when we all get to heaven, we're going to be very surprised, I believe, by the technology that they actually had.
For sure.
I mean, we're picturing cavemen.
Really?
We're picturing cavemen in loincloths building a giant stick building. I can assure you, it was far more advanced than this.
Do you think there were kind of the demigods, the Nephilim, involved in any of this, at least behind the scenes?
They were the heavy lifters.
You know, the Noah's Ark or the flood had already happened.
Yeah.
But I still, and we can get into that some other time.
Yeah.
About okay, why were there still giants
Right.
after the flood?
Right.
But yes, I think that's absolutely it, and I think it was just as bad by the time they got to Babel.
Yeah.
Because of what God had to do.
Right.
You know, just as bad as it was with Noah's Ark, and I think, you know, I just really think that technology. I mean, for Noah to even build a boat that size,
Right.
that's gonna be completely safe and stable,
Right.
in that situation. You think about we don't think about all this, right?
Crazy that he did that.
But the
Like
technology,
120 years. Like it took him 120 years to build that boat.
if in Genesis, oh, you're not there yet.
well, these aren't cavemen in loincloths
No.
building a stick building.
No.
Okay,
No.
is my point.
But going to the Nephilim, don't you think if the devil's whole plan was to ruin the seed of men from Eve,
Yes, it was.
then he would send demons to infiltrate the population with women?
Yeah, but you know what's interesting is God. He condemned those demons to hell. The ones that did do that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's a whole nother subject. Of
Yeah.
How did the giants get back in there?
Right.
But Genesis 6, going back to the days of Noah, God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and every imagination of the thoughts of man's heart was only evil. Right.
Just think how dark that was.
And it repented the Lord. That means the Lord changed his mind that he had made man. God actually
Sad.
was like,
This is Genesis 6, you guys. This is like not too
Yeah.
long after.
and this is right before Noah's Ark, and it grieved him. All right, God. Now remember, Jesus said, in the last days before he comes, it's going to be as in the days of Noah. All right, that's one of, and he also said, as in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. Two different scriptures. But what we just read was right before Noah's Ark, that scripture. What God is trying to show us here is if we're not self-aware consistently, or you could say constantly making sure that we have a connection with the Lord,
yeah.
we're going to wind up just like these guys did, doing things for ourselves and only ourselves, which will end with, can only end bad.
Yeah.
It can only be a chaotic outcome when you put all man together as one,
Yeah.
making a name for himself. Nimrod said, let's build a city. And we all know that these cities are known for the propagation of evil. It seems like man, even going back to the Bible days, doesn't do well in cities. Think about this. Cities are where 90% of the crime is, 90% of the drugs, 90% of all the bad stuff going on. If you really think about it, goes on in cities. Thomas Jefferson hated big cities. The first 5 books in the Bible,
Yep.
the Torah, first 5 books in the Bible, hates big cities. Or the men that founded this country, you could say, were very literate in a biblical sense. Alexander Hamilton, other men that founded the country, wrote in something called the Federalist Papers. Federalist Paper number 51, Federalist Paper number 47, talking again and again to where rancor, rumor, half-truths reign in cities. They say cities are where mobs and masses have the ability to dominate.
Right.
This is what our founding fathers thought about cities. And this is what's going on in Genesis 11 when they're trying to build the Tower of Babel. That if they're going to build the city of Babel, they're not going to be controlled over time by their reason or logic. It's going to wind up in chaos. It's going to wind up in chaos eventually, if man is left on his own. And so when you look at the idea of the local church, the rights of states themselves, right? Just federalism in general. We learned that what God tells us in Genesis 11, that we're not going to build something that is centralized, right? Completely that centralizes everything. And this is what the World Economic Forum is saying. We're going to centralize everything. We're going to change human nature. We're going to do this ourselves. And the founder of the World Economic Forum, if you've never tuned into us before, Klaus Schwab,
Klaus,
his top creepy scientist, Yuval Harari, says we're all going to
brilliant.
we're all going to be like gods. That's what
Wow.
the World
we're very
Economic
smart.
Forum, just like Babel.
Yeah.
Right. You can see that in Genesis in the first 11 chapters.
Yeah.
We're made in the image of God, and we're supposed to worship God, but we are definitely not God.
Right.
And really, Adam and Eve, that's why they fell.
Right.
They were trying to become like God. And Genesis 1:1, where it says God created the heavens and the earth, if you have any depth at all, you see that it is a being that's greater than you, and that you are put here for a purpose.
Right.
You are put here for a purpose. And the World Economic Forum is a group of a lot of the world's most powerful, rich people, powerful people,
Rich and influential.
financiers, politicians, bankers, corporate CEOs. They meet. They come
royalty.
King Charles.
They come up.
I used to be obsessed with the royal family, and because of all this stuff.
Are you not American?
No, I just like you were the same age as like Prince William when you were growing up, right? So you you just kind of thought like, whoa, that's amazing. No. But now hearing all this and knowing how affiliated they are,
their fake car chase through New York City.
That is so funny.
Okay, what now? There was a car chase in New York City.
Okay, you know
they
how
said that they were
Meghan
being
and
chased
Harry
by the press in New York City.
Meghan and Harry.
And it's not even true.
No.
You know, they just want attention.
You're a prince,
These
Harry.
people.
He's not is he still a prince?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know. That whole situation.
prince of a guy. I
They're the
wouldn't even
people who
look at
want
him.
privacy, and then they're like always out there with their stories.
Well, yeah, you can't make money off of your influence.
but I'll say
and
the cab
everything if
driver-
you're not seen.
Right. The cab driver who was driving them was like, a garbage truck blocked us because he was trying to pick up garbage.
There wasn't a chase. There wasn't a. They weren't chased by the paparazzi.
But can I say
through New
that
York
is
City.
number one news on CNN today,
Yeah.
which is fake news. Instead of John.
Instead of there is an FBI whistleblower testifying to Congress right now while we're recording this. What's the date today?
May 18th. About the
2023.
January 6th.
About the January 6th. Yeah, so January 6th, this guy...
January 6th.
Huh? I don't know. That's what we got canceled for.
So this FBI gentleman,
You're right.
this former FBI agent, he was transferred to Florida before January 6th or around that time to be involved in human trafficking cases. But the FBI pulled him into covering the January 6th stuff, investigating different things for people who lived in that FBI district or region, whatever. I don't know what they call the FBI.
Isn't it interesting
zones?
that
Are
I
they
was
putting
listening
is
to
that
another?
publicized? Is that testimony
Yes.
publicized?
It's on. It is on, but it's not
it's
on the
right
news.
now. If you look at certain
channels.
What is C-SPAN should have it, obviously.
But I was listening to another FBI whistleblower about something else, and they also got moved to human trafficking in Texas. So human trafficking and child sex trafficking is a real thing.
It is very big.
Anyways.
It's got a lot of attention at this point, but
So
there's
anyways,
obviously things to talk about. But there's a lot going on. It's interesting that Harry and Meghan are the distraction for some information that would really be good for people to know about some of these.
Does it make you kind of feel like now
biases.
their story was like fabricated on purpose to cover this stuff?
Absolutely.
Because I honestly am just like, that's a whole bunch of malarkey for 2-hour car chase in New York.
Yeah.
You can't even drive that fast. If you've ever been to New York, you're literally like stopping, starting.
I have not been in New
So
York.
anyway, I'm no longer a
But I
royal.
might be
a royal.
in November.
But
you are going to be John.
Yeah. But you're not going to see, any
Same
of the FBI whistleblower testifying in regards to January 6th. It's something you would want to hear. Trust me.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Because they're going to cover it up, and that's just what they do. That's CNN. It's not real news, And listen, financiers, politicians, bankers, corporate CEOs that make up the World Economic Forum, all right, they come up with these goals regarding globalism, how to push the world to globalism.
Yeah.
And when they go back to their prospective countries, that's what they do. They talk about environmentalism, which the leader of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, the founder, says it's going to be the new worldwide religion.
Yeah.
They push socialism. They've got a plan, and that's why they meet, in Davos on a yearly basis. They want to unify their message, and it's a Tower of Babel type doctrine that you can see and you see God actually taking down Babel. So they're trying to put this together and launch it, push it out into the world. They're very patient. They have a lot of money, a lot of influence. Google a picture of the European Union's building in Strasbourg, France.
We have a link.
We have a link to that. It is an exact replica of the Tower of Babel that was painted by a medieval artist by the name of Bruegel, right? It's an exact replica. And it's like they want that.
Bruegel like Google.
And the goal...
Bruegel like bagels?
And the goal of the World Economic Forum is for the world to be all on the same page.
Bruegers. So.
Talking one language.
Isn't that interesting?
If you know what I'm saying. The WF understands that faith plays a major role, all right, in how humanity works. And the World Economic Forum is constantly seeking to work with individuals whose lives are based on faith. They published 7 concerns that they have in respect to people involved in religion. They actually published one of the problems of religious people that they need to change is that they are not willing to experience change.
Do you think this is why they're like coming and connecting with pastors in America and getting them like what's that guy, Rick Warren?
Yeah.
He's heavily involved.
Yeah,
we've talked about that before.
We're just getting to that.
So that's the thing that I always worry about, because we're talking about Nikki Haley being one of the World Economic Forum, like they sponsored her for whatever.
She's a young globalist leader or something.
Yeah, but she obviously speaks from a different side of what we might expect World Economic Forums. Like when she was defending Israel in the UN, when she was the Secretary of State, or was it Secretary of State?
Yeah,
whatever her
UN
title
ambassador.
was. UN ambassador.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Yeah, she wasn't the Secretary of State. Anyway, so you look at those and you go, are they wanting her to be speaking her message, or do they just want her influence for them to then tag and say, "Oh, the World Economic Forum must not be that bad. They're promoting Nikki
Haley's part of it,
right?" And then same thing for Rick Warren. Oh, they must not be that bad. That's a church
But if you
guy.
listen to Rick Warren talk about it, he's like, we are doing things. They help us get into places where we haven't been in the gospel,
but
and it's just
at what cost does that influence what
Rick Warren,
he just stepped down from his church, though.
He also said about 5 years ago, for Christians and Muslims to come together and pray.
Yeah, I'm very careful about this because I have a good friend who loves Rick Warren.
Can I just say this? I don't have problems. If you want to be a Muslim, you can be a Muslim. But if you're a pastor, you do not invite... you don't invite another religion into your church to pray with you. No. Okay, under the guise of loving others and being inclusive. Okay.
Don't you just think that opens
you're turning you're turning your church over in the spirit. Okay, in the spirit realm to another spirit, and they said religious spirits. They don't like religious people. That the World Economic Forum that are determined and set on the fact that abortion is wrong, right? They just set on things. They refuse to change. And that religious people are set on the fact that globalism is wrong.
Correct.
So Jim's never going to get an invite from the World Economic Forum.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I would never go. And so the WEF is discussing.
Go take a tour.
I'm just I'm a peon in that world, right? Right. The WEF is discussing faith and why it's needed, but they're trying to control the issue of what faith is defined as, and they don't like what we have faith for. And you better be careful. This is where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Because there is coming in the future pastors, evangelists, ministers that are going to buy into this.
Yeah.
All right? They're not going to be able to turn down the money or the influence or whatever it is that they're offered. And they're going to be how pastors out there embracing LGBTQ, add the multiple letters however you want to, of the other letters. This is happening worldwide. It's a global agenda. It's something that you need to be aware of. You need to watch for it, for this doctrine seeping into your denomination or your church or your faith-based group. We know it's not going to happen here at Living Word. In Genesis 11, you have a gap between God and man. And how do we know that? Verse 6, again, we're in the Babel verses. The Lord said, behold, the people are one, and they have one language, and this they begin to do. Now, nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined. And so, notice how he says nothing will be restrained that they imagine when they all become globalized, right? That's what he's talking about. Think about this. This backdrop, Moses wrote this, right? Moses wrote this. And, the big thing, look at the backdrop then. The big thing was paganism. If you read the first 11 chapters of Genesis, knowing that paganism was the backdrop. You got an ocean god, river gods, moon gods, all kinds of things going on here, who people were worshiping. And think about this. The god of environmentalism is nature.
Oh, yeah.
All right?
For sure.
What is a witch worship? Witchcraft is at this point possibly stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And what nature? They get their power through nature.
Witchcraft, Wiccan, those different related, anybody who proclaims to be a druid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Bible says in Genesis that we are supposed to have dominion over the earth. It's like an order in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. God over man, man over nature. Environmentalism is saying man is supposed to be, in essence, serve nature or below nature, or they're at least saying nature and man are equal.
Right.
All right? And that's not what it says in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. And the Bible is saying that you have to have this order. Nature, man is above nature, okay? And then God above man. And this is the order that the Bible clearly gives. In order for man to survive and not wind up in chaos, this is what the Bible tells us in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. Think about this, how God responds to this. He says, again, the Babel verses, let us go down there and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them from thence, from the face on all over the earth, and they left off to build the city. He scatters them. 24 verses later, you have God telling Abraham, get out, leave where you live.
Yeah.
Imagine that chaos when everyone can speak the same language, and then all of a sudden you go to talk to somebody and you can't. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall there.
I bet it got violent.
I bet it did get violent.
With the spirit there.
Yeah,
the spirit
for sure.
that was there, the spirit that was already there. Because God told Abraham, he was located in the heart of paganism, and God got him out of there. He's like, you're going to have to go on an adventure, get everything that you own.
Bilbo?
Yes. And like who?
Bilbo.
And, we're closer and closer to something today called polytheism.
Definitely.
This is where everyone has their own viewpoint.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Their own God. And the scriptures say man is going to do whatever is right in his own eyes.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with everyone saying, my God is going to be what my viewpoint is? That's going to be my God.
It's so infuriating to me is because in that process, you lose objective truth. Like you lose what is there anything true as long as you can interpret everything by your own version of truth, right? Because that's what gets me riled up when.
But it's confusing.
They don't want to deal with reality. They want to deal with their own version of reality that doesn't actually exist in reality.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like that little boy who I think he's like a 10-year-old kid. He wore there's only 2 genders to school, and they kicked him out. So he showed up.
He wore a shirt that said there's only 2 genders.
And they kicked him out of school. And he was like, so there's like a lawsuit against him. And he showed up at the lawsuit, and it was like the most eloquently spoken minute video. If you can Google it. Yeah. But he basically says, you guys put whatever you want in our faces, and we don't say anything. Right. We put up with all of your flags, all of your holidays, all of your stuff. Yep. And I wore a shirt based on my truth, and I got kicked out of school and expelled, and you told me not to come back. Right. He's like, this is what the Bible says. This is what
suing them, or are they suing him?
Well, they expelled him, so he's fighting it because
he's suing them.
Yeah, he's suing them.
Good.
But he's like 10 or 11. He's really young.
Yeah.
But they like.
But this is.
But it's their truth,
right?
And it's. That's what we're talking about here is your own viewpopoint. It doesn't even make sense.
That's what the World Economic Forum is selling, though, is what would you call it?
But looking at all this, okay, go ahead.
They are selling the fact that they are gods.
Yeah,
they are making up the rules. That there is no other God. They know the real truth, but it's like they are. You know how in the Bible, Jehovah has different names. You have Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah
Yahweh.
Yeah.
Shammah.
Yeah, Shammah. And these are all parts of how God has demonstrated himself. And it looks like the World Economic Forum is trying to make their own list of who
that's a good
humanism
point.
or what they are setting out for transhumanism to be and take the place of God. And
can I just say something really fast about the Yahweh? I just read this thing on Instagram the other day. So Yahweh means like the breath of God. So they're saying even when an atheist or anybody breathes, they're saying God's name because it's in the breath. Just Google Yahweh. It's crazy. It is. I'll bring it next week.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
It is wild.
I've heard that someone we know very well preached that
he did
for a year and a half.
Oh.
Remember the breathing?
I do.
No.
You don't remember?
I do remember breathing, but I don't remember.
That's what was all behind that.
There was a bunch of that.
There was a teaching behind that. But
I like short, concise.
But what that does...
Don't lose your way.
What this does is, as John said, it invites an anything goes in the morality game. This is why America, technically, it's getting to the point that you're not allowed to say it's wrong to chop off a child's sexual organs at the age of 8. You're not allowed to say that. Why can't we say that's wrong?
I think we should say that it's wrong.
Why
that is wrong.
Why do they not like us saying that's wrong? Right?
Yeah.
Because where there is many gods, there are many views on morality.
Right.
And what's moral and what's not moral.
Right.
And their personal belief says that's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this society is becoming polytheistic.
Yep.
Many gods.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you get to the point where anything goes. And notice, defund the police in a law and order situation.
Yep.
It's slowly law and order is being removed. There's no law and order, and that's why you see now pedophiles, they are becoming a protected class with legislation.
Yeah, we talked about that a few weeks ago.
And they're trying to give them rights.
Yeah.
This is where they're going. Doesn't it make you wonder, anyone, and I can't help but say this, anyone that would pass a law like that,
right?
It makes you wonder, are they pedophiles themselves?
Right.
Is it because they are themselves? Would you pass?
The person who's trying to pass, I think it's like in the Senate or something that got passed the first bills, is a transgender Lee Fink.
Okay, fine. But why would you pass legislation protecting a pedophile?
Unless.
That's what I'm saying.
Totally
you
agree.
sympathize with one? Or are you?
Yeah.
Are you one?
Yeah.
And these things, we're talking about Marxism, LGBTQism, wokeism.
Yeah.
They're all pushing us at a quick speed towards a one world economy and a one world government and all these things we're talking about.
So was it called paganism like back in the day? So it was an ism? So like all these are like isms. So all these are like just off of isms.
Well, there's like specific paganism, which means that they worship a certain set of gods, and a lot of times they were either like nature type gods or.
So these are just different names for.
But
these
also,
it's
a broad term for anybody who doesn't believe in Christ.
Oh, okay, thank you.
They worship something other than Jehovah.
Okay. Imagine worshiping a rock. My gosh.
How about a camera?
How about a camera?
Look, the Bible says it's going to be here, right? The Bible calls this stuff. Revelations chapter 2 and 3, Jesus he's telling the church, you're going to deal the doctrine of what was it? What the Israelites, just a compromising doctrine. The church is, he's warning the church that in Revelations 2 and 3, in a couple of those letters, don't compromise.
Don't compromise.
The doctrine of, is it Balak? He's saying that, that's a paganistic, that's a merging of New Age and Christianity, paganism and Christianity, the whole Jezebel thing. That's what she was doing. Okay, she was preaching for them to merge, a merging of Christianity and paganism. And Jesus is like, don't compromise.
Yeah,
don't compromise. And this is what's happening. The Bible's calling this. I'm concerned that we really only have 20 months left in America.
Right.
Because I'll tell you, if you're China, right, you do not want to take the chance that Biden is going to be replaced with someone who's not going to give you the same latitude that that Biden's giving you right now. And so if China is going to do something, it's coming in 20 months. And yeah, maybe it's just invading Taiwan, which is a huge deal for a lot of reasons. Maybe it's shutting the power off over here. I'm sure they have the ability to do that by now, right? And think about this. We are weaker. I don't have time to go into the numbers, but our military is the weakest than it has been since Jimmy Carter, okay? And weaker than when we were under Obama. All right, we are weaker, and I don't have to have time to go into the numbers and stats, but they are turning our military, i.e. West Point, which was one of the best, it was training for our officers. They're going woke. West Point is woke.
Right.
Okay?
Well, did you hear that? The Pentagon just did a briefing because they had a transgender military person try and recruit people, and everybody was attacking them and said, why are you doing this to our country and our military? Why are you using US dollars?
Right.
And she's like, this was just a pilot program, and she just got lambasted for her point of view. It was a Navy thing.
When you are weak, it invites violence.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. And you've got the Ukrainian war bleeding us dry. We're pouring money into Ukraine. We don't even know where half of it goes. It would be great if we could, if we had
trickles back to some people's pockets over here.
Trickles back into some politicians' pockets. And we've talked about that before. This is just the beginning. This is all going to get more chaotic.
Yeah.
It's going to get more destabilized because it's going to get to the point where the population of the world says, we need a guy here.
Right.
Yeah.
We need a guy here.
Somebody save us.
And destabilization, demoralization, these aren't accidents.
Yeah.
This is what they want. This is the World Economic Forum's strategy, the WHO strategy, the UN strategy, as they try to globalize the the way Nimrod did.
Yep.
And you can see that Nimrod was behind it.
If Nimrod's a foreshadowing of the Antichrist, then doesn't this just make you be like, it's not that far away?
Right.
Yes, because it says in Genesis 1 chapter earlier, Cush begat Nimrod, who began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was, verse 9, he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Verse 10, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Okay?
Wow.
That was just the beginning of his kingdom. Babel didn't end it for Nimrod. All right? Yep. If they want their... No, that says the beginning of his kingdom.
Started.
Well, I never knew that till today.
If they want their modern day Babel, they have to get America out of the way. All right?
Yeah.
They have to get the Bible-believing side out of America, out of the way. They have to deceive the Bible-believing side. If they can't get it, move them. They've got to fool them, right?
Wow.
And to being inclusive, right? As you see, different big-time pastors going that direction,
right?
Because they think they're loving the other guy, right?
Yeah.
And they're being inclusive. And it's just a spirit of deception. Right. There are many Christians in America that are not going to just willingly do what they want.
Right.
They're trying to make it look like there's fewer of us, but really there is many more than you think.
Yeah.
And what they want is a recreation of Babel. And we're the last nation standing in the way of the world being globalized. There's nobody else. China and the American left wing, the American progressive, they love each other. All right. They love each other. Why? Because they have the same goals. They're both financing wokeism.
Yep.
They're both financing critical race theory. All right. The last best hope is people like you listeners, subscribers, viewers. Outside of Jesus Christ, you are the only thing restraining. And I know that you've heard this many, many times. 2 Thessalonians 2, 3, 4, just paraphrasing, let no one deceive you. There's going to be a great falling away of Christians first. We're watching that, right?
Yeah.
The man of lawlessness, that's the Antichrist, is revealed. All right. Verse 4, he opposes, exalts himself so proudly, insolently against all that is called God. All right. That's verse 4. Paraphrasing. Verse 6, and now you know what is restraining him from being revealed at this time. It is so that he may be manifested, revealed in the appointed time. Verse 7, for the mystery of lawlessness, that hidden principle of rebellion, that spirit of Antichrist, it's already here in the world. That's what the Bible says. But it is restrained. Okay? That's us. Until he who restrains is taken out of the way. Right. The rapture.
Yeah.
That's the rapture. We will be taken out of the way. So do you want to be a spectator here and just be part of the church that, like a lot of them are doing, that's burying their head in the sand? Right? A lot of the church, they don't want to know. They don't want to know any of this, and they'd rather not know. Do you care that we do not have a border in America? Do you even care? 8,000 people a day on average just walking into our country. I'm willing to bet you 100 of them are violent criminals. We've told you before, these South and Central American countries are emptying their prisons, right, with their most violent criminals and sending them up to the border. Do you care, or is that a good thing? The idea of a nation with borders and boundaries is a biblical idea.
On that point, I was just having coffee with Leanne Risk the other day, who is a missionary in Mexico, and she said they are literally busing them to within a couple miles of the border. So it's not like they're walking from those places.
Because I read
they are being bused to right within walking distance of the border.
I believe that because I read a story yesterday where the New York City mayor is putting these illegal aliens into gyms with school that is going on, so these kids can't have gym class anymore. And there's this one guy who said and maybe you did swim through snake infested waters, but he said he walked through 3 countries. But hearing that, I'm like,
Well, there might be some, but there are specifically people that are
well, I have
to
seen
get there.
buses.
Yeah.
They're just trying to infiltrate them.
It's
in California.
It's just interesting that Americans would not even understand the principle of national sovereignty.
Right.
Like they have the right to have a secure border.
They just don't care.
You guys in California, they're trying to give them unemployment.
Yeah.
They're just concerned with their own little world, right? That's where we live in.
Well,
but you know what? There'll be a day where all that will be taken away because they don't care and they're not paying attention.
And they're gonna say, oh, well, if I'm not compassionate against, on their side, then I'm a bad person. That's what's being used against people who have good sense. Is their compassion is what's attacked. So
empathy,
if you are standing against, are you so good that you just want America for yourself?
But in other countries, can you go in and just...
No,
and I'm all for anybody coming here. I know plenty of illegal immigrants. Yeah. I know plenty. I know people who are here legally and illegally, and I'm fine with that. But the influx of people, not fine with illegally, like get your citizenship. But I'm saying the influx amount of people, it's all going to come to us. Paying for these people.
We're already buying phones for them.
And it's not phones for them. It's not even that it's going to put a drain on our own incomes, which it will. It'll put a strain, but it's tearing down the foundation of the country by overwhelming it from the back door. That's the big thing.
And as I said, the idea with the nation with borders and boundaries is biblical.
Yeah.
How are you going to play along, church, with what these guys are trying to do? How are you going to play along with the World Economic Forum, World Health Organization, the UN, the far progressive left wing of our nation? I'll just say it's very clear. This is what they want. You might think the Bible is just a book of ancient writings, but we're talking about issues that are being dealt with in the first book of the Bible thousands of years ago that are literally happening right now. We're talking about literally a modern day resurgence of the Tower of Babel doctrine, and that's what they're trying to get to. What Nimrod was trying to reach with the city of Babel. Nimrod wanted a one world governing empire where just Nimrod was the guy. He was the head guy, and that's why he's a forerunner of the Antichrist. He's an Old Testament type of the Antichrist, and you don't have to be fearful here. The Word of God tells us not to fear, and it is there for us so that we can have assurance, so that we know what's coming with all that's going on. Remember, Jesus died on the cross for you. He was risen from the dead 3 days later, and he gave us the Bible to tell us how this is going to roll out in the end.
Yeah.
In the end.
We win.
Yeah, but you have to keep your head down, and you have to be the restraining force, right? You have to be the restraining force, and, I know it just seems like far and few between. A lot of churches aren't addressing it, but we know that our stream is more than it's not.
Yes.
Okay. Not that our stream's the best stream or whatever you want to say, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I think that Word of Faith really does understand more than the other, and maybe other streams of Christianity have some things on Word of Faith. All right.
Well,
but I'll just tell you this: but Word of Faith, more than any other stream, I believe, gets what's going on here. So let's switch
the
to
news.
Yeah.
So last week we did our whole podcast on the WHO, the World Economic Forum, and the UN, and how they're trying to come against the U.S. sovereignty. So I don't know. Did you guys see the members of Congress yesterday hold a press conference?
Yes.
Okay. It was actually funny. Did you watch a press conference?
There was
I don't know. I went on Epoch Times to look something up, and all of a sudden it was like live press conference. So I clicked it on. It was like the most hilarious 30 seconds I've ever witnessed in a news conference ever. But anyways, they were saying they're bringing awareness to this. They want people to pay attention because the meeting with the WHO takes place May 21st through the 30th.
Yep.
So we do have a link to action so you can sign the, what is it?
Which the
petition
21st through the 30th, just like last year. It's at the end of May.
Yep.
But that's going to be a day before this podcast airs. All the way
through the 30th.
No, we said it last week too.
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
But this is when their meeting starts.
Yeah.
They just need everybody to sign as many signatures. So I was annoyed and I sent it out to everybody I knew and asked them to send it out to people they knew. And I got laughed at because I don't think some people believe that this is really a thing.
Yeah,
it is.
But you guys, it's really a thing. So
who laughed at you?
One of my sisters. She's like, ha ha, are you serious? And I was like, hello, where are you?
I can only imagine which one. I can guess which one for sure.
We're not going to do that live to my sisters.
All right, we won't.
But anyways, click on the link and sign the action. You can also get updates on the WHO's plan. So anyways.
Yeah, and that's important.
It's very important, you guys.
If you don't want your country run by the World Health Organization,
you don't.
Right? It will no longer be a free country. You have to sign something.
I'll be honest. When people used to bring petitions to my door, like back in the day, and ask me to sign stuff, I would be like, "Oh my gosh!" But now, no, it's for real. It really is.
Yeah.
You just kind of thought they were crazy people. Maybe it was like the year of Jehovah's Witnesses, where like someone was always knocking on your door, like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Did you feel like that? It was more.
Okay. Maybe.
Maybe in Brooklyn Park. Literally, every week we would have the same guys.
When I first moved to Minnesota, we didn't have them in South Dakota because they would have had to walk a long way to the next door.
Yeah, my son was like 5 at the time. My oldest, he'd be like, "Mom, the guys are back."
The guys.
I'd be like, "Get away from the door." He's like, "They saw me already." I'm like, "I don't care." Anyways, Jehovah's Witnesses.
A lot I could say about Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, but go ahead.
We'll just leave it at this. Okay, so Minnesota. I think we talked about this a little. The Minnesota election overhaul bill, obviously, they're trying to manipulate Electoral College. This is what one of Hillary Clinton's elector warns. So this is on Fox News, so this is pretty big. So the Minnesota legislature has an elections omnibus going through it that would manipulate the Electoral College. So there's 3 Democrat-backed bills. Isn't that interesting that it's Democrat-backed bills that they're trying to push through the Minnesota House and Senate to address election laws. So you have to call your city council, Congress members, and say that you don't want this pushed through. I was trying to find a link to add it to this, but I couldn't. My neighbor brought the petition to my door, thankfully, but you can only sign it for the city you're in. Otherwise, I would have a location.
But I mean, Minnesota, right? But this is statewide.
But this would be like popular vote. But then they want to push this.
What do they care? They've got the complete majority anyways.
But then they want to push it through so it doesn't only affect local elections, but it affects presidential elections. So then the most popular voted president would win instead of
Well, this is the time they're going to do it because they're all progressive left. They've got the majority everywhere here in Minnesota. We're a bunch of winners here in Minnesota.
We are. But speaking of winners in Minnesota, okay, John, I think you might have sent me the video of the 10 council seat that's up for grabs, and there's like a bunch of Muslims that got into a fight on the stage because they're like going against each other.
Right.
So this was like crazy.
So it was chaos. So it's like the top two candidates and all of their people, and there was no civility. There was no organization. They were taking their signs into the other side. Just
it's not funny.
And other people just started wrestling, and it turned into a
Is
brawl.
this a local thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a
So they shut
Minnesota
it down.
thing.
So now the Minnesota Democrat leaders are convenient to have an emergency meeting because they want to get order put back into these seats. But this went nationwide, this thing. It was kind of embarrassing for Minnesota. Don't you think?
It was. Definitely.
It was.
Hey, this is where we are.
Expose the fact that some people are being real dumb.
They were. Nimrods.
What do you expect? We are right there with California. We're probably the most progressive left-wing state.
Well, we're the left wing in the center of the country. We're like an anchor for that.
Yeah. And I don't know which podcast it was. It was like maybe 2 or 3 ago. We talked about how California, Silicon Valley people are donating to our local elections, pushing for Democrats to be put in positions to hold seats of power.
That's why we here at the Final Hour podcast are a voice in the wilderness.
Hello.
Just like John the Baptist. Somebody did send me, because we were talking about his honey belt. Somebody sent me a link to buy a honey belt.
Susie Doran.
Sue Doran, it's her sister.
Sue.
It's her sister-in-law.
Susie?
No, it's her sister-in-law. Because I went to high school with Susie.
Susie's sister-in-law is Sue?
Yeah.
That's wild.
It is wild.
Well, Susie Doran was our center.
For basketball.
She was our 5'11"
She used to play. She used to play Wednesday night basketball.
Did she?
Yeah.
She's a great athlete.
She is.
She was. She was funny,
fun.
too.
Really
Okay.
good athlete.
So speaking of World Economic Forum people, and I know we talked about this, so Elon Musk, I said as a skeptic, I'm still a skeptic, but he appointed a World Economic Forum chairman, Linda Yaccarino, to be the Twitter CEO.
Yep.
We know, let's just be real. No matter what his statements are, he's being investigated with the Epstein stuff.
Yep.
I've seen him pictures of him dressed up like a devil.
Yeah.
I just don't
I've seen
think
that.
Elon Musk is, I think it's not a real deal there. All right. You can love him, but you'll see.
My dad-
It's not going to come out a good thing.
I wouldn't
with him.
love him.
My dad was actually telling me, Timcast, I listened to a really good Timcast on the whole Elon Musk CEO Twitter thing, but my dad was telling me a while ago, I don't know when it was, that Timcast did a whole thing on Elon Musk and how he needed to have an organization that was already put in place for his Neuralink to use that as like a database and
Absolutely.
so that's why he bought Twitter. It wasn't because he was freedom of speech, which is probably the platform he's using.
Yeah.
It's deeper than that
Oh,
because
I'm
that
sure.
little chip is going to go in people's, and it does do good things, right? Like people who couldn't walk, they're going to walk again.
Yep.
But like we said before, a long time ago, that will become just like.
That's what will make the mark. So
Well,
they'll say,
and-
by the time the mark of the beast comes, they're going to say, if that did that,
Neuralink.
this is going to keep you alive another
Right.
50 years.
Right.
You'll never have
and
cancer.
you have no will of your own at that point because you can be controlled by.
Well, remember that Yuval
something inside of
Harari
your
said that
brain.
it would track it would like track
Absolutely.
your database or whatever it is, and then algorithms and tell you what you want and what you should do.
Exactly.
Like that is the ultimate goal of these people.
We've been talking about national sovereignty, but this is when you are giving up your own personal sovereignty.
Good point, John.
Then again, how can you have your own belief in Jesus if
what if that thing
it
little
is
makes you not?
Absolutely. That is why it takes away your humanity, and that's what they call it, transhumanism. You have gone beyond being human.
That stuff just overwhelms me because you can go down a rabbit hole with that in your head of just all the ways.
Well, and if it's in your head, you can go down the rabbit hole very quickly.
Not that rabbit hole leads you down a whole different way.
I didn't get any of that. Go ahead, Lonaiah.
Was it over your head?
Yes.
Don't get the chip, Jim. That's the point.
Okay.
So did you guys see that the Durham Report came out?
No.
John Durham.
Boy, did I.
John Durham. Remember it was like the Russiagate against Trump?
Russia.
And John Durham was leading it?
Yeah, I did see that. Actually.
So
4 years of investigation.
Isn't it? Yeah, like it started in 2016, right?
No, the Mueller was first, and then John Durham was 2019 when that was launched.
Okay, so John Durham just reported that he reveals massive failures in FBI's investigation of Trump. Isn't that crazy? So if he would have been honest originally when Trump was going against him when he was trying to run, he's like, this would not have affected this last election because so many people thought that he was colluding with Russia.
Yeah.
Because didn't they say they had like video or like voice recordings of him and things he said?
They said all sorts of things that ended up being very wrong.
And do you know who was behind that? Was Hillary Clinton.
Well, that's shocking.
Yes, I've listened to a whole pod. Oh, you said we know that.
We know that.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. We know that.
Dirty people.
Yes.
But the problem is that it wasn't just from 2016. It was launched, and that affected the next 4 or 5.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And now 6 years. It is,
damage done.
I think for me the worst part of all of this is the FBI came out and said, yeah, we know there were problems, and if we have implemented certain measures, so we will never have to deal with that again. So they're just saying, that's
and Trump.
we weren't doing. It wasn't all clean. So we've cleaned that up. So they're just basically saying they have no problems right now because they've already
the FBI, the CIA,
addressed it internally.
Please.
I'd rather have Hoover back. I'd rather have an FBI with Hoover running it at this point. Go ahead.
I don't understand that. Wow. Anyways, Trump says, wow, in other words, the American public was scammed, just as it is being scammed right now by those who don't want to see greatness for America. He said this affected the elections, and there's no doubt about that. And because of that, Adam Schiff was very implementive in making sure that the false narrative was being pushed by Durham. So I don't remember that lady's name. She's from Florida. She's trying to get him expelled from Congress.
I saw a picture of the House resolution that she had already signed, but it hadn't had.
And I don't know. I kind of get feel like whatever happens with this stuff, nothing. Well, but at least people are filing claims.
I feel like, that's where people get hopeless because they see all of the media, they see all of the complaints, and they have a side, and they're like, I really want something to happen, and we go through a 4-year investigation. That's the question. Is something actually going to happen, or is it just another appeasement of the people or appeasement of one side? Yeah, we'll look into it. Yeah,
I just go back to Psalm 2 in moments like that. Like God in the end will have justice on all of that, even if it doesn't happen.
Remember what he did. That's why we talked to you about Josiah. That's why we talked to you about Jehu. How quickly he had one guy, and in the case of Jehu, he came out of nowhere.
You're right.
No one saw that coming. Okay?
Remember, he was a great chariot rider.
Yeah, I'm just
Fast and Furious.
It's coming out again.
Okay,
Fast and Furious 10 is coming.
I'm just saying,
Fast and Furious 23.
The church is supposed to go out on top.
Yes.
All right. When the rapture comes. All right. So you just keep your eyes open. It says to watch. You're supposed to pray. You take your authority to protect yourself every day. Authority of the believer. We have 4 episodes on that.
Yes.
And so what else we got, Lonaiah?
Okay, so speaking of another 3-letter position that is disbanding whistleblowers, the IRS, did you hear this? They disbanded the team that's investigating Hunter Biden.
Right.
So they removed the entire investigative team overseeing the investigation into Hunter Biden's potential tax crimes.
Yep.
Now, this is important. I want to read it word for word because I don't want to fumble anything. So a move believed to be retaliation for a whistleblower coming forward to Congress last month. They said there would be no retaliation against anybody who came forward, and this guy did, obviously. So last month, the whistleblower came from within the IRS. Okay, you guys, it's not like he had just been in the IRS for 2 years. This guy's been in the IRS since 2010, I believe.
Yeah.
13 years, that's a long time. Who had been supervising the Hunter Biden probe since 2020. He told Congress that the Biden regime was working to cover up the president's son's tax violations. This is only one thing that we're talking about with Hunter Biden. So anyways, the Internal Revenue Service, criminal what is that word? Why can't I read it?
Supervisory.
Yeah, okay. Special agent we represented was informed that he and his entire investigative team are being removed from the ongoing and sensitive, high-profile, controversial subject of this case. Is that crazy?
Well, it's stupid because
Trump
and the IRS and DOJ have not commented on the report. Shocking.
The crazy thing is, I mean, it's the way to stall the whole thing because there's an election coming next fall. So it's a year and a half away. It's a way to continue stalling getting any sort of info about it, because then whoever is there, the investigation is going to have to start all over again. Things are going to fall through the cracks.
Speaking of the elections,
Speaking of
remember Biden. That too. Remember the Dominion machines?
Yes,
Wasn't it like going back to China and then coming back here?
There's a few of them. There were reports that. There were reports that some of those things were happening where they were hacked or at least rerouted, and they traced it to China.
Makes you wonder about the China ties.
There's all sorts of.
Okay, anyways,
are we still using those dumb machines?
Yes,
a lot of places.
Isn't that why
speaking
Tucker
of
Carlson?
them, that was the report, or at least that's part of the report. That the reason that Fox News let go of Tucker Carlson was it was part of a settlement with Dominion, the Dominion machine company, whatever it's called, was to let Tucker
Isn't
Carlson
that interesting that he was such a threat to them because he was speaking truths that they wanted him fired before the next set of elections?
Absolutely.
Just tying some dots together for you people.
Exactly.
Listen, you got more news?
This is just one more thing that I want to say because we need to pray against this because after school Satan clubs are starting to grow, and I know we've talked about this across the United States, and Pennsylvania is adding their first satanic temple after school club program.
Did we ever get back to that lady?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, thank you.
I gave her a lot of information.
Sorry. All right.
So the clubs are introduced at school. Isn't this interesting? Where only other religious clubs reside. So they'll only start a satanic club if there's another religious group meeting. Doesn't that just show you what the point of their plan is? They're not trying to indoctrinate anyone, they say. They're just bringing scientific facts.
The Satanists.
About Satan?
Yeah.
The people that worship Satan. Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you want to shut her down, Jim, you can.
Shut who down? Oh, okay.
But I just want to say, I just feel like that's so interesting. And it's like literally a spiritual battle that you are not starting something unless it's already there.
Right.
And one more thing just to end on, because I was listening to this. So I don't know if you guys know who Sean Fouch is, but he's a worship leader. He's been going into states, into their capitals, and then he'll do like worship at the Capitol at the end of the day. Satanists are showing up at his events and they're dumping blood on these people and like doing curses at them and like burning the Bible in front of him. And he's like, if you do not realize that we are in a spiritual war and that God chose you for this time to show up and to take your place in the realm and in the spirit for him, then like he's like, you're missing the point of your existence.
And in that world, you have to say, when you take your authority, I say every day, one of the things I say is I command the principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, the spiritual wickedness in high places. I call them, those are ranks of demons. When you see that in the Bible.
Yep.
And I command behind any curse or curses. Let's just cover our subscribers and viewers and listeners right now. Behind any curse or curses that have been leveled against us. Me or anyone listening today, behind any witch, coming from any witch, warlock, Satanist, or New Ager, or anyone else. We have the power to do this. We bind you, we rebuke you, and we send you back to the curser in the name of Jesus Christ. You should do that every day. That's taking your authority. You can keep yourself clear of weird things, all right?
Yes.
So thank you so much for tuning in to the Final Hour podcast. God bless you this week. Use your authority.
That's right.
Use your authority and stay connected to God. Have a great week.